Welcome back to Module 1, Lesson 3, Part 4. Here we're going to see a little exploration and transportation of the times at just prior to Christopher Columbus sailing westward. First fellow we're going to see is this guy here on the left. Marco Polo is going to visit China. He's going to do that just about a year after the Crusades end. So 1271 became a little bit safer to travel through the Mediterranean and through the Middle East. And so he and his dad, along with a group of other merchants, are going to go to China, spend some time, get some goods. Dad's going to come back to Europe. Marco is going to say, "Hey, Dad, I think I'd like to stay." And so he stays in China for about 20 years. He sees what China has to offer. He sees their goods. He writes a book about what he saw. And that book is extremely influential later on in history, and we'll see that in just a little bit. Marco Polo visits China 1271 to 1295. So after Marco Polo comes back from China, his book just sits on the shelf. Not a lot of people are reading the book because it's very expensive and time-consuming to print a book by hand. Then this guy, the guy on the left, Johann Gutenberg, in 1477 is going to invent the printing press. And that printing press is going to revolutionize the education of people and the materials that people will be able to read. The first book that Johann Gutenberg is going to duplicate is going to be the Bible. And another book that he's going to duplicate is that book that was written by Marco Polo way back in the late 12th, 13th century. That one book is going to end up in the hands of a guy from Italy by the name of Christopher Columbus in 1491. And that's going to inspire him to travel west. So a book that was written in 1300 is going to inspire a guy nearly 200 years later to travel west from Europe and bump into North and South America. Now that people are interested in exploring, primarily the four countries of England, France, Spain, and Portugal, those four countries want to get to wherever that new land is as fast as they possibly can. And the fastest way they can get there is also a straight line. If you take your math class, point A to point B, the quickest to get between those two is a straight line. And the ships needed to be able to get from point A to point B faster. And so with the help of some technology that was pulled out of China and just the development of science within Europe, the astrolabe is going to be started to be used on ships, as well as the compass. Both of those will allow ships to sail straighter. And it's cool that you can travel straighter, but it's also cool just to be able to go fast. And so they made a development to the ships, not so much the ships, but the sails, and they made them triangular, and they call this a caravel. So now you have ships going straighter and faster, so they could get to new lands quicker than the other guy. And the first person to get there, again, can lay claim to the land, which means all the resources they're able to claim as their own, right or wrong. But the European powers are going to start laying claim to new lands. The country that's going to use this new technology the best first is going to be Portugal. And Portugal is going to be inspired by the fellow there on the left, Prince Henry. Now, Prince Henry says, okay, guys, we want to be the richest and the wealthiest and the most powerful nation in the known world. And so in order to do that, we have to claim more territory. So he's going to use the technologies of the astrolabe and the compass and the caravel. And they're going to start to explore a little bit further off the Iberian Peninsula along the west coast of Africa. Along the way, they're going to start pulling out some slaves. They're going to start to interact with the cultures of Africa, which we saw earlier in the African lesson. The first guy, after Prince Henry is done, is going to be in 1488. That guy's name is going to be Bartholomew Diaz. And he's going to leave Portugal, going to go across the west coast of Africa, always having his left hand on the coast of Africa. He doesn't want to venture too far away because he doesn't know what's out there. So he always wants to stay within contact of the land, or at least relatively close to the land. And so he goes down to the southern portion of what we now know as Africa. Big storm happens, hurricane happens, ships rocking back and forth. And all of a sudden he wakes up, his hand's still on the left side, or his left hand is still on the land of Africa. But now all of a sudden he's seeing the sunrise over his right shoulder instead of coming over his left shoulder. So he quickly realizes that he must have gone someplace beyond what had been known, and so he quickly goes back to Portugal, and he tells the Portuguese, "Hey, there's something over there." Then in 1498, this guy Vasco da Gama, he takes that trip, but this time he goes well past the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa, gets to the east coast of Africa, and he bumps in with a guy from India, or his boat from India. And the guy says, "Hey, do you want to see my place?" And he says, "Yeah, I'd love to see your place." So he goes to India via water. First guy, first European ever to do that. Now, 1498, there's this guy by the name of Christopher Columbus. He's already gone west via the Atlantic Ocean. But the Portuguese are trying to find another route, because once someone found a route, someone wanted to find that other route. So Vasco da Gama is going to take this route and get to India, and hopefully that's going to put Portugal in as a world power. And that puts an end to our section on Europe. And we'll see in Module 1, Lesson 4, how all these worlds are going to start to meet. See ya.